My name is Savannah Moss. It is July 23rd, 2026, and it is 12:39 p.m. We are at Sweet Memories Vintage Tea and Candy Store in Girard, Ohio, and this is for the Trumbull Living Memories Project. So now, could you please state your full name and your position here?
Absolutely. My name is Delaney Pallo. I'm a graphic designer here at Sweet Memories Vintage Teas and Candy, and I get the privilege of being the unofficial historian of the Golden Age beverage.
Wonderful. And just very quickly, do I have your permission to record the rest of this audio?
Absolutely.
Great, perfect. So at first, I would like to ask a little bit about you and how you got started here.
Yeah, I am probably the luckiest girl in the world, I think. Last year, I was looking for an internship. Throughout college, had maintained graphic design internships in addition to my schooling just to try to get some professional development experience and couldn't find anything locally for, months on months. And it was the longest I'd been unemployed, well, not unemployed, but without something in my passion. So I was really kind of stir crazy. And one day I was applying like it was my job, and I saw a job posting come across both LinkedIn and Indeed, which I was applying on both at the time, and it was for here. When I called Linda, she asked me in for an interview, and she walked me around the store. At that point, we hadn't opened up the Golden Age Vintage Marketplace yet, so it was just Sweet Memories Vintage Teas and Candy, and I felt like I was in heaven. There was an Idora Park Wildcat roller coaster cart, and the printer blocks that they had originally used for Idora Park advertisements in the 1930s. And Linda was telling me about the history of them, and it was like I was so entranced. I'm such a history junkie, especially locally. My family immigrated here from Czechoslovakia, and my great grandparents met in Idora Park. So it was something really special to me that I got to not only be interviewed for this company, but then Linda and I just got along so well that it was a really serendipitous fit that they needed someone and I needed a job, and we fit in perfect. And from there, it was history. I get to design for the shirts and the collateral and the store, and it is just truly one of the most environments I've ever been in, especially locally.
Oh, it's wonderful. So I'm assuming you are from the area. So whereabouts?
My parents grew up in Austintown and Youngstown, respectively. So they left for a while and came back to raise my brother and I. And I went to Youngstown State, and I just graduated with my degree in graphic design. So I'm very connected to the area.
Well, that's wonderful. And you've been here for about a year, or
Yes, so I've been here for a year and a month now.
happy belated 1 year anniversary?
Thank you.
Wonderful. Is there anything else you'd like to tell about your personal history before we dive into what you have for me?
I think that's all.
All right, I will turn it over to you to tell me as little or as much information as you want because I did not prepare specific questions for the history. So, again, whatever you have for me.
Perfect, no worries. I am a yapper, so you're gonna get a lot.
Please.
So when we started the Golden Age Vintage Marketplace product, it was or project, right? It was the product of Linda's experience locally with entrepreneurship. When she started her business, I'm sure she told you in 2020, she was printing shirts that were officially licensed with Good Humor, given that they were founded here in Youngstown and invented ice cream on a stick and the ice cream truck. And when she sold these products, like these printed apparel licensed shirts, she was selling them online at the Youngstown Flea, which is a wonderful organization, and at the Canfield Fair, which growing up in Canfield, I'm no stranger to. They're great community organizations that support local businesses and small entrepreneurs in the area. And Youngstown has a really rich history of entrepreneurship beyond just, I think when we talk about the young mills and the closing of the steel mills, damage to economic fabric, honestly, but there's a lot of entrepreneurship, and that grit that we talk about is not just from that. It's not just from the people who put in the hard work at the steel mills, not to discredit that by any means, but there are a lot of small businesses and there's a lot of innovation and invention that was started in this area, and that's what we really seek to celebrate. So she was surrounded by all of these entrepreneurs at the flea and at the fair and got her start there, and then got to see how different community organizations can help lift those entrepreneurs up. So once we were moved into the building and settled in, we were rounding out on our 3rd year anniversary. It was last November. We had a few months till the 3rd year was in February. We realized that we have this giant space in the building that we were just using for storage and for our offices, and someone was moving out in the rest of the building. So she realized that we could move our storage into that suite and make something that can help support other entrepreneurs in the area. We had previously, in 2025, just bought the branding rights to Golden Age Beverage. We get asked for a lot of different things around here. Being a vintage candy store, people are always asking for things that they remember growing up or that their grandparents always had. And Golden Age Beverage was something that we got a lot of questions about, as well as Harley Beverage, which I can touch on a little bit too. But Golden Age is a local company that was started in 1932 by a Russian Jewish immigrant by the name of Nathan Darsky. He immigrated here in 1912, and his goal was to just create a better life for his family. You know, they were immigrating out of a rough time in Russia, and he just wanted to do something that could get his family by, keep them afloat. At the end of the day, um, their company did way better in sales than he had ever expected it to. So their bottling operation started getting cleaner and quicker, and they started coming up with all of these inventions and innovations in bottling that kind of pushed them into the eye of PepsiCo. So Pepsi at the time was looking to franchise and expand their business. And Nathan had two sons and a daughter. His son Julian realized, sorry, Julius realized that there was an opportunity to become a Pepsi franchise with all of the innovations that they had started within their own bottling. And that's down on, if you know, oh God, the street's gonna evade me, but it's down off of South Avenue, kind of south of like Penguin City Brewery and where the Youngstown Flea is hosted now. Their original bottling facilities down in that area. They had a faster production line than the Pepsi manufacturers did at the time. They were inventing trucks with lower truck beds so it was less of a strain on the workers to load the heavy crates of bottles into the truck. They were doing a lot to really mechanize and industrialize their process, and Pepsi saw this. And after they had kind of turned them down and ignored them a few times, given that it was a small family business, they were like, we're not interested. Julius was like, come look at our facility, and brought in the Pepsi franchisers, and they were just blown away by all of the innovation that the family had just committed to and poured their soul into. And so they were offered the opportunity to take over a franchise that was located in Akron, Ohio. So Julius was the one who kind of started moving in that direction and working with Pepsi a little more previously. And after Nathan decided that it was time for him to retire, he kind of extended the business to his two sons and his son-in-law. And they realized that their Pepsi operation was also very successful. So they were bottling Golden Age in conjunction with their Pepsi franchising. And they had the opportunity to open up a franchise in Florida and one in Texas as well. So the three sons, two of the son-in-law split, one in Akron, one in Florida, and one in Texas. And then Golden Age kind of became a national brand. It was recognized a lot more locally, given that it found its roots in Youngstown. Nathan, immigrated here and built this brand from nothing and gave it to his family, but it traveled across the country. And once Linda bought up that branding, knowing that people locally were asking for it, and we started bottling Golden Age, we started getting calls from Texas and Florida from people who recognized the brand and were looking for it online and saw that it was coming back. Obviously, a lot of those ingredients that they were making soda with in 1932 don't exist anymore. Like the dyes, that's just not, it doesn't exist. So we can only get so close to the original taste, but we're working really hard to try to get to a point where people locally feel like it's something that they recognize and they can take pride in as something that they grew up with and a local Youngstown brand. And the Darsky family went on to, they were in the Soda Hall of Fame, which I didn't know existed until I started researching for this project. And, they saw a lot of acclaim given what they had built and the innovation and the pride that they had taken in their business, and that grit that we talk about within the area is just so ever present, even when it expands beyond. And so when we started this project, looking into creating a vendor space and a vintage marketplace, we realized that the Golden Age beverage brand was a really great hallmark for what we were trying to do, which is to build up that local entrepreneurship and to encourage and inspire other local entrepreneurs to see that, like, this is not just you're going to live here, start your business, and your business will die here with you area. We are so much more than just workhorses and people slaving away in a factory environment. We are innovators and inventors and entrepreneurs, and there's so much to be proud of. And so when we were creating the space, obviously we have vendor spaces for them to come in and create their own little storefront, and we staff it so that they can stock it and then go and do whatever it takes to support their small business, whether that be working a full-time job or creating product full-time. And when creating a space that was cohesive and with Golden Age at the center in the forefront of that, we started collecting and buying all of the Golden Age beverage materials that we could find. So we have wire racks, we have crates that are from the original brand of Golden Age beverage, which was developed in the 2000s. So we have all of this signage and ephemera and all of these vintage bottles and cans in a case in our store. And it really kind of brings back that concept that like things can start so small, but we're looking at these cans and these bottles that were mass produced, and like there was a demand for a small business producing fruit flavored sodas. And that was another innovation of theirs was they realized that a lot of the larger soda brands at the time were producing primarily cola beverages. So they focused on ginger ale and the fruit flavors that, wasn't as common in the store when you were going to buy a soda beverage. And we really dug into the family history there just to kind of get a sense of what these people were developing and the pride that they had taken in their work, and put together the Darcy family legacy wall. So we've got a nice little blurb of text. We've got some family heirlooms. Nathan Darcy's great grandson was in contact with Linda and said, "Hey, thank you so much for bringing this back. We love what you're doing." We've got some like photos and vintage pieces from our own family history if you'd like to see them or use them or have them for the time being to do with what you will. So we've got some beautiful family photos from the 30s and some gorgeous photos from like they would partner with Idora Park. Whoever could collect the most bottle caps from Pepsi or Golden Age would win a slew of prizes. And it's a really unique set of history given that the economic state of the area was just so much better back then. There's things in the Texas now that were going on. Like the news in this area is just so looking through all of that was really inspiring, and we pulled as many newspaper clippings that mentioned the family as we could. We learned they were really great friends with Joan Crawford. We pulled all of these newspaper clippings together and collaged them into a large vinyl installation to put on the wall. We also did some research into other entrepreneurship in the Valley. There's tons. It's joyful and label, which is a hot topic right now, I know. Handles, good humor, the list goes on. It really, and so we pulled a lot of that entrepreneurship and we put together even like the penalty flag for football that was invented at Youngstown State. Like these things that you would never think would come from this area, not only did, but then have taken on lives of their own beyond the area to the point that you don't recognize them as Youngstown icons or Trumbull or Mahoning or Northeast Ohio icons at all. And so we really wanted to celebrate that entrepreneurship, and we put together another installation on the wall in the area or in the marketplace that celebrates that history as well.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Linda told me a little bit about this, and maybe you could touch on it a little bit more. Speaking of these vinyls of the Darsky family, what do you see the future of this? She said some kind of like museum sort of thing. So can you touch on that?
So I'm a big history nerd. I'm sure from the everything about me just talking about it, that is a thing that I studied as a history major at YSU and switched to graphic design. So this is something that I don't, take lightly. This is someone's family history. This is important business, and you want to celebrate it in a way that is not diminishing of all of the work and the triumph and the heartbreak and things that go into a family business. I understand that Linda and Scott run a really beautiful business here, and seeing the way that they operate a family business and treat all of us as family is like it's a really interesting dynamic that you don't want to do in an infrastructure. And so in going through all of that, we realized that there was a lot more material that we had that didn't get put into the clip on the wall. And so while we were developing out this piece, we realized that there's a lot more, which to most people, they're not going to sit and read a whole book about someone else's family history. To me, that was a really fun project. So I didn't really want to miss out on that. Linda bought the building a few years ago. She was initially renting. They rented to have their screen printing shop in the building for years. Then she rented out the space in the front for the candy store. She bought it. She blew a hole in the wall and started the toy store section. And then we opened up this bay as well. So, as things keep moving and rolling in the area and there are empty bays in the building, it's really unclear where we're going, but it's very clear that Linda's not stopping anytime soon. She is that grit and that ambition and that innovation that we talk about when we talk about the area's innovation and entrepreneurship. She just exemplifies it. And I know that's my boss, and it probably sounds like I'm trying to toot her horn, but it really is inspiring, not only to her employees like myself, but to all of these entrepreneurs who she brings into this space and who get these get the mentorship from not only a community of entrepreneurs, but from Linda herself, who did make it happen and who's seen success not only in the area but nationally. And so I think that us owning the building and us seeing so much growth in such a short amount of time definitely lends to some interpretation of where we could go from here. We talked about a few different business ventures, and I think that it's really just a wonderful environment for the area to have, given our rich economic history and those high highs and those low lows. It's really nice to have something that not only recognizes and celebrates that, but makes us feel like how it felt to have an active, alive downtown, or how it felt to have, an area with an amusement park or with that economic boom to where you can have the freedom to do things. We like to bring that feeling of nostalgia back, but there's so much to that that is inaccessible in a lot of other places in this area that we're trying to, get past.
Yeah, I think that's wonderfully said. And the door's shut, so if you said anything,
I'll
um,
say it to her face.
no, I definitely got that impression when I met Linda too. And even just walking in here, I shouldn't be, this is not part of the, I'll have to cut this, but yeah, I definitely got that feeling even just walking here as someone that doesn't eat a ton of candy, I guess. But
Crazy, I don't either. I know I work here, but it is just you walk in and you can't help but feel like
Mhm.
I didn't know what my grandparents were talking about. In my area, actually, some years ago, we were talking, and she was like, "Oh, are you from the area?" And I was like, "Yeah, my grandparents and great grandparents all grew up here." And we're talking about it, like Steve's Hungarian, like nature, like not nature, but her grandparents were her grandparents were
Mhm.
Italian, or our grandparents were Hungarian immigrants and my great grandparents were Hungarian immigrants. And so I
Mhm.
grew up with that culture and with my grandparents telling me about the things that they grew up with. And,
Mhm.
you sit at your grandparents' house and they want to tell you about this amusement park that you've never seen and was burnt down way before you were ever born. And you're like, all right, Uppa, let's go. Like, I get it. But then, you're gonna be sitting in a job interview in 20 years and your boss is going to be talking about the Idor Wildcat cart that's in store, and it kind of all clicks. It makes a
Mhm.
lot of sense now what those people are so passionate about, and what they're trying to explain that we really have never seen in this area at this age.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have a favorite part of working here?
Oh, that's really hard. Oh, God, I think my favorite part of working here isn't it's not the candy, it's not the free soda, it's not like, I get to see all the in the free shirts and whatever. And I do feel very creatively fulfilled by my job as a graphic designer here, but it is when people walk in that front door or they see the Wildcat cart or they see the Golden Age beverage signs and cans and they go, "Oh my gosh, I remember that." And then I get to say, "Oh, are you from the area? Do you remember this?" And I get to have these conversations where these people look at me and they say, "Thank you so much for bringing this back or for celebrating this. I remember that when I was growing up here," and I get to tell them everything I know about it. And then they're surprised because I'm 23. So why would I know
Mhm.
anything about Idor Park or Golden Age Beverage or Strauss's downtown? Those things that like I get to talk about as a nerd to someone who gets to talk about it because it's gone. And so both of us have a fulfilling interaction where it's like, "Oh, I remember that," and I have the nostalgia. And I'm like, "No, tell me more because I want to consume as much of this as I can get." That is my favorite part of work.
As a historian, I fully agree.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, is there anything that I have not asked you or anything else you'd like to share about yourself, the business, the Darskis, whatever?
I think that is, I'm gonna swing through. Oh my God, interesting tidbit. I have like a full like, kind of bio about the Darsky legacy that I had like formalized and put together. But that was one of the most interesting things about their family business was that during 1942, like mid-war, like in World War II, we're cutting back, we're rationing, and like there was a lot that was so scarce in the area, and a lot of businesses saw a lot of
Mhm.
loss, and their business stayed entirely stagnant, no growth, no loss, and that is just such an incredible hallmark to that passion and that entrepreneurship that like they saw no loss during World War II of all wars. And then the other part that I'm going to mention, oh my God, I'm sure she mentioned the Christmas story. Okay, so I could have said this in the first part.
She did not.
Okay, so we buy up the Golden Age brand, right?
Mhm.
We own Golden Age Beverage. We're bottling, we're producing. And we are working with Orca Beverage, which has a large scale facility where they produce, they buy up, and they bring back vintage sodas. So things like Dad's Root Beer, Lemmy
Mhm.
Lemonade, like a lot of them you haven't heard of, but there are some that you have.
Mhm.
Bubble Up 50, there's like 13 of these shirts for out there. And we're working with them and they were like, hey, you know the Christmas Story, like A Christmas Story, the movie A Christmas Story, we
Mhm.
all know, you was Future Eye Out Kid. That was filmed in Cleveland, right? And we're like, yeah, everyone knows that, everyone in the area. And they were like, you know when he's shooting his eye out in the backyard, he's like aiming with the Red Ryder for the
Mhm.
first time, he puts the target on a Golden Age beverage sign. And we were like, what? And we just like scrubbed through the movie. Like we're on YouTube, like clip, you'll see your eye out kid. And we're like scrubbing through it, and there it is, clear as day. So we have the incredibly unique opportunity to then spin that because first of all, we
Mhm.
didn't know that, and we own the name.
Mhm.
A lot of people in Youngstown and in the Northeast Ohio area, period, don't know that. It is just such a little known fact that like this brand that all these people had asked for and have loved for years, and
Mhm.
like it's a cult classic that we're getting asked for, had no idea. And you watch that movie, every year, most people, and so
Mhm.
it was just such an interesting little call out to the area, and also just such a call out to, I mean, those filmmakers really did their research.
Mhm.
So that is something that we got a really interesting and unique perspective on. We got to celebrate that last year. We had like a Christmas story, Christmas celebration, and I think the final thing that I really think is important to celebrate with this family, which I've become just an informal advocate for at this point, one of the things, it was the first thing that I had found. Golden Age kind of became my baby right after I got hired because he was like, oh, you're into history. Here, take
Mhm.
this project. Um, we had found the clipping. It was Nathan Darcy's obituary.
Mhm.
And so it was in like the 70s or 80s, I believe, and he was turning 92 just a few weeks prior to his death. And one of the quotes that was in there, I have written, and it's out on the wall as well, but it's really, I think, important and pertinent to current day events to celebrate. But he said, my greatest accomplishment and the most precious thing of all is that I can proudly say in a loud voice, my family and I are Americans, and we belong to the greatest and finest democracy ever known to mankind, and how fortunate we are to live in this God-blessed land. And I really just think that that is such a poignant thing to note, that this immigrant family came over, started a business from scratch that gave them all their livelihood and inspired such a cult following in not only the area but across the country.
Mhm.
And that is that kind of grit and entrepreneurship that comes from people who are willing to seek it.
Yeah.